Hello, everyone. So good to see you and all of your AIs. We are going to be taking them out. We will send recordings, of course. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the last week of October and the second class in the Financial Liberation Challenge. Generate. If you are back after last week, come on into the chat and say hello and let me know, what are you sitting with today? What are you sitting with today? And if this is your first class, welcome. So glad to see you here. Let me know that as well. And you're hearing some music by Maestra, my good friend Kyra. And she's reminding us that we are born for this. Yes, we were. These times. And for any of you that are feeling behind in any way, let that go. You're not behind. You're right on time, right on schedule. Just maybe the best thing you can do is go into school and get the financial liberation meditation and do that a couple times. Great, Amy. You are trying to let go of some money shame. We're going to let go of all your money shame. Not just a little of it, not just some of it, all of it. Yes. And Bernadette, welcome. So glad you're here. Cam, glad you're here. Susan, welcome, welcome. Brenda, so glad you are back and thrilled to be here. And we could just make sure we take out these note takers, including Kevin's and Laura Lee's. They distract me in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and take those out. So good to see you all here. Hey, Robbie, good to see you. And Grace, oh, I love seeing your face here. Welcome, welcome. Yes, you. It's such a joy to see so many of you that, I've had in my life in different ways over the years. And I'm just so glad that you are participating here. And what I would love as we get started is for you to come into the chat. If you are on the Liberate Masterclass, what is your takeaway? What is your takeaway so far? Come into the chat. Let us know. Martha, wonderful to have you here. I am sending you my deepest love and condolences on your loss, and really glad that you're stepping into this next phase of your life here with us and relearning how to manage your own finances. What a gift. Okay, Jason, love that. Your takeaways, we need to think differently. Yes, that is for sure, isn't it? We do need to think differently, don't we? And yes, Elizabeth, freedom is worth more than money. Yes, you are not in scarcity. Yes, Jackie, you need to know your number. Great, your minimum to thrive number is a critical one for sure. If we could just take out Sandra's note taker, that would be great. Bridget, yeah, you need to rewire generations of survival and learn to thrive. What a great one. Andrea, I love that. Maybe you can just share here in the chat a little bit about how far you have come financially since when we first crossed paths and how long that has been. Certainly one of the elements of the liberation stage of financial liberation is celebrating. And Larry, go ahead and stop the music now. We're going to go ahead and get started. Beautiful. Thank you. Wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you are all here. I am Allie Katz. This is the Financial Liberation Challenge, and this is session number 2, Generate. And if we think about financial liberation as a spiral path, and you're always on this path. And what we've been focusing on so far is really the one point of your liberation, which is knowing your minimum to thrive and knowing that no matter what happens, you can earn what you need, minimum to thrive, in alignment with your values. In alignment with your values. And so last week we talked about what is this one point of liberation? What is your minimum to thrive? And how to even determine that. And many of you began working with the Money Map tool. Some of you could not get into the tool. It's brand new. Our old tool we're phasing out and we're creating this new tool. And so if you had any challenge getting into the tool, the Money Map tool, go ahead and message Kara here in the chat so that we can get you an updated link. And today we're focusing on the generate piece because, again, when you can generate, when you know without any question that you can generate what you need, I often say on demand, in alignment with your values, you can begin to really take that financial liberation challenge, that financial liberation meditation to heart and remind yourself again and again and again that all of your needs are met. And so if you haven't gotten into the financial liberation meditation yet, that is in school for you. And I really encourage you to utilize that maybe even on a daily basis if needed. There were times in my life where I needed to utilize that on a daily basis, where my mind was screaming at me that I didn't have enough. And I began to realize that I was outsourcing so much of my deeper fears and insecurities to money. Because my mind, it turns out, was really good at dealing with the money problem. But it actually was protecting me from looking deeper, from seeing what's actually underneath the I don't have enough money. Was it really true? Because if so, well, I can solve that problem. And we're going to talk about that today of how you can solve that problem. Or was it something deeper? Was there a deeper insecurity? Was there a deeper fear? Was I actually just playing out inherited patterns that were running in my system that were telling me that I didn't have enough or I wasn't going to have enough? And so when we look at our minimum to thrive, how little we need to thrive, then we can see where are we actually in relationship to that minimum to thrive. If it's actually true that you are not earning your minimum to thrive, or that you're not earning it in alignment with your values, then you have a clear next step. And that is to earn your minimum to thrive in alignment with your values. You heard me talk about Laura Hollick, and today one of the most well-known, respected, financially abundant artists of our time. And she spent, I think, 5 years as a mail carrier before she could really be clear on how she was going to generate through her artistry. And all of you have the ability to generate your minimum to thrive in alignment with your values. And so if you're not doing that, that is your next step. And then you just put all of your time, energy, and attention focus on doing that. And you have clarity about where you need to go next. And you can align your time, energy, and attention towards your minimum to thrive. But many of you are going to discover that you do earn your minimum to thrive in alignment with your values. And now you can begin to free up all of this attention, all of this energy that is going to this idea of not enough. All of the choices, all of the decisions, all the ways of being that you are being through a lens of scarcity. And you can begin to shift. You can begin to shift. And that shift is going to happen through your clarity. Through your clarity. And this idea of liberation, this idea of financial liberation, it's not a one-time event. There's no there like there is with this idea, right, of retirement and how much do I need in order to retire? And then one day I'm going to get there and then I'm going to have enough and then I'm going to retire and then I'm going to be free. Right? How many of us are running this pattern? And what we've discovered in our last class is that that's an old paradigm. It's a culture of extraction. It's convinced us to trade our time, energy, and attention now for the illusion of a false future freedom that it turns out we never get to. This idea that if you have enough where your money is earning money on its money, then you're going to be free. And instead, what we're doing is taking back your power from that extractive narrative and supporting you to recognize that you're on this spiral path and that this spiral path is actually a path of personal development that gives you the opportunity to look at what you've inherited and decide what you want to pass on so that we can shift out of this extractive culture together and into a regenerative future by you reclaiming your relationship with money and your time, energy, and attention. We call that together your team resources, so that you are no longer sacrificing the non-renewable in service to that which is infinite. Money. Money is infinite when you know how to use your time, energy, and attention wisely. And I want you to keep reminding that to yourself. Money is infinite when you know how to use your time, energy, and attention, your non-renewable resources wisely. So when you hear me say that, what arises for you? What arises for you when you hear me say that? Money is infinite when you use your non-renewable resources. Time, energy, and attention, relationships, health. Wisely, you can create exactly what you desire. But we are going to need to heal what we've inherited and create this new future reality together. And Cam, I love that. You believe it intellectually. We can get it cognitively, but what can that look like for me? And that's actually exactly how I created this entire body of work with that question, because I believed it cognitively too. And my heart resonated with it so deeply. Oh, I have enough. But then my mind said to me, well, okay, what is enough? What is enough? And that is where you're going to use the money map tool to know your minimum to thrive. Now, ultimately, as you journey through this spiral path of financial liberation, ideally on the upward spiral, and let me say that when you're on a spiral path, you can be spiraling down or you can be spiraling up. How do you know if you're spiraling down? You know you're spiraling down if you're spending your time in lack of clarity or confusion. Spending your time, your energy, your attention wondering, am I on the right path? Indulging your escape fantasy, thinking about how you want to escape from whatever it is that you're doing. All of these are signs that you're not in clarity, that you're in confusion. Now, it's easy to switch into the upward spiral at any moment. All you need to do to shift from that lack of clarity and that confusion and wasting all of that creative energy that you have to create and contribute and be of service, all you need to do is recognize and notice, oh, I'm spiraling down. I am wasting my energy and attention, which are actually your two most valuable resources, your energy and attention. I'm wasting these resources in a lack of clarity and confusion, and it is just keeping me like this. And this is the downward spiral. And in that moment, you're going to pause. And we can all take that pause right now. And we're going to pause and just notice it. And do the best you can to notice it without any self-judgment, because that's just continuing the downward spiral. And maybe just notice it with compassion for yourself. Oh, I'm doing that thing. That thing that I don't want to do. That thing that actually doesn't serve me or anybody in my life. I'm not going to make choices from there. I'm actually going to pause. Maybe I'm going to go listen to the financial liberation meditation. Bring myself into my body, bring myself into my heart, bring myself into my awareness of all is well, all my needs are met. I'm going to do my gratitude practice. I'm going to go walk around and look, even just sit in my chair and look around and say, oh my gosh, I am so full of everything that I need. I'm going to go turn on the faucet. I'm going to have hot water come out and I'm going to, wow. And then you're going to say, yes, Martha, in the pause, we can have grace. That is where grace comes in, to recognize the opportunity to learn something new today. And what I'm going to learn today is that all I need in order to get into the upward spiral is to know, where am I now and where am I going next? Because when I know where I am now and where I'm going next, I have a point A and a point B. And now my logical left brain, which is so big and powerful, can map a path. And once I have my path mapped, I can take the actions, right? Think about it. When you are getting in your car, you do not make any decisions around where you're going based on how much gas you have in the car. You get in the car knowing where you are right now. And then you put in your GPS where you want to go. And then we get the straightest path there if that's the one that we want to take. And then if we need to get gas along the way, we do. And that's how you're going to begin to think about your relationship with money. Money is the fuel. It's the fuel along your trip. It is not the thing that stops you from getting to where you want to go. Now, in order for that to be the case, you do have to know where you are now and where you're going next. Imagine that you tried to chart your path on a trip and you didn't know where you were now and you didn't know where you wanted to go. Well, it'd be very hard to map that path. It'd be very hard for you to stay on track. Of course, you would be in this, where am I? Where am I going? And sometimes that's fun because you just want to be on a wild ride and an adventure and it's fine and it doesn't matter. But this really does. And so we want to be as efficient as possible. We want to be as efficient as possible. And so today you're going to be looking at, where am I now and where do I want to go next? Now, before we do that, I do know that some of you are having trouble with distinguishing this word thrive from survive. And wondering, well, what is the difference? And so, yes, surviving it's not actually enough. It's not actually enough. It's staying alive, right? It's staying alive, but it's not actually enough. And it really does matter because if your minimum to thrive number is a survival but not thriving number, then you are stuck in one of the expressions of money dysmorphia, which is called just getting by. We're going to talk about the four expressions of money dysmorphia more so on our fourth class, Transform. But one of those is just getting by. And if you are in a just getting by reality and that's what you're anchoring towards your minimum to thrive, ultimately you become a drain on your community. And so you are looking at your minimum to thrive. Minimum to thrive is what do I need and those you support if you have dependents to thrive. This is different than what do you want. So I want to be very clear about that. What you want is actually the third turn of the wheel. And before you create what you want, you need to create what you need in alignment with your values. And before you create what you want, you may even decide that you need an ecosystem of support and they need to have what they need. And then you can begin to have what you want. And making the leap from what you need to what you want is a massive transformational journey. We're going to talk more about that in the Transform Masterclass because ultimately you can all have what you want. And ultimately you can all create an ecosystem where you can have what you want and where everybody in your ecosystem has what they want. This is the no limits reality that we are creating together. Because imagine that everybody does that. Now we can actually create a world that works for everyone. But first, you must create what you need. Right? And so many times I see business owners or people who have big dreams get stuck in a place where, okay, I want to build $1 million business, but then give up along the way because you don't have the foundation of a income you can count on. The first step of $1 million business. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about that today. Okay. And yes, this question around minimum to thrive and what goes in there and like, how can my minimum to thrive maybe include me not making my mortgage payments? That's a big one. It's a really big one. And that is going to be dependent on your credit score. Are you preserving your credit score? Or have you gotten to a place in your reality where you're actually at rock bottom? You're not even at just getting by. You're at rock bottom. You've already had to let your credit score go. And if that's the case, your minimum to thrive may include not making your mortgage payments and living in your home for a period of time while you buy yourself time. That can be a wise strategic choice. And then as you get stuck in this question of, well, what's the difference between what I want and what I need? Don't I want what I need? Yes, you want what you need. But there's a lot of things that you also want that you don't need. And so your minimum to thrive is the things that you need in order to thrive. So one of the things about coming into the school platform, if you haven't gotten in there, please let Kara know so she can help you. She is committed to helping every single one of you get into the school platform so that you can engage with others there. There's a vibrant chat happening. And is that you can have these philosophical conversations with others including some students who have been with me a long time and can help you, like, for example, Angel, one of my longest term, most committed students to this body of work specifically. And then for those of you that want more up close and personal coaching directly from me, both in school and in a private WhatsApp group and on 2 calls that we're going to have. I've created a VIP option for this challenge, and I will send out the link at the end of our class together today for those of you that want to up level into that and get more direct coaching from me where we can actually work together through some of these beliefs and some of the things that are coming up for you. You can also enter to win the VIP. We're going to draw on that next week because the VIP calls will happen in our break week, November 10th. And we'll also open up our private WhatsApp group that we'll be hosting for the VIP. So if you want to win the VIP upgrade, you can post on social media with an insight that you've gained from this challenge so far and tag me at the Alley Cats or our new Eyes Wide Open Life Instagram social, and you'll be entered to win. And we're going to draw on our class next week, November 3rd. For those of you that are personal family lawyer firm leaders that did not use our gift code for our end of the year gift for you, we're gifting you the VIP as well. So if you are a personal family lawyer firm leader and you already paid, we're going to gift you the VIP. Okay. So the liberation stage is the beginning stage of your clarity. And you're going to come through the liberation stage on the journey to financial liberation as you go through each turn of the wheel. You're going to pass through the liberation stage again and again, where you get to gather your resources, harvest the lessons from your last turn of the wheel, celebrate how far you've come, decide where you want to go next on this turn, every turn of the wheel, right? And as you're coming around to the next turn of the wheel, and all of you, by the way, have a visual of the turns of the wheel in school. Let me just go ahead and pull this up for you now as well. Let's see if I can share my screen just so we can re-anchor and reorient to what are these turns of the wheel. Okay, so we've got, if you think of this as a spiral path, right? Apparently this is like a model related to the Guggenheim something something. But we've got this minimum to thrive is your base. Turn of the wheel number 1. Earning my minimum to thrive in alignment with my values. I can always come back here to this one point of liberation. And you're going to generate your minimum to thrive in alignment with your values. You're going to learn how to steward that well. You're going to learn to detach and transform any beliefs that might be keeping you stuck there. And then you're going to liberate, harvesting the lessons. Where was I not generating in alignment with my values? Where did I not do a good job stewarding what I have well? What are the beliefs, the limiting beliefs, the things I inherited that I need to transform in order to step into the next level, the next turn of the wheel, minimum to be of service? And your minimum to be of service is going to be where you're generating enough for you and your dependents, me, minimum to thrive, plus anybody in your ecosystem that is supporting you. So for example, who's in my ecosystem that is supporting me? You can all see that right here, right now. Who's in my ecosystem? You all know some of the people in my ecosystem. You could put that in the chat. Who are some of the people in my ecosystem? You can see them right here on the call. Lara, Kevin, Kara, right? Cam, yep, you're in my ecosystem. That does include you. Exactly. Ariel, Allison. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Jason, you are in my ecosystem, but you are not in the ecosystem of the people that I am supporting financially with my generation capabilities and capacities, right? You're supporting it by being a client and my service to you. This is part of the regenerative model, right? The more I can give in service, the greater capacity I have to serve more people, the more people that I can support in my ecosystem. This is how I become a creator of the economy. This is how you become a creator of the economy. As you step into your minimum to be of service, you're not just generating enough for you, but all of the people that you support. Today, when I go into our Slack channel, into our all staff Slack channel, let me just see what's the number today of people that are in our ecosystem. Let's see if I can pull this up real quick. We have 133 people in our all Slack channel. Yeah, wow, I know. I say the same thing. Wow. So those are the people that are in the ecosystem of support that I have over time using this model learned how to expand my capacity at each turn of the wheel to be able to support. And that is your next step going to be your minimum to be of service. And that might start with just one person that is supporting you in your ecosystem to free up your time, energy, and attention. Right? It might be the person that's going to do your laundry and fold your clothes and put them away. It might be the person that's going to run your errands and go to the grocery store and, prepare your food. It might be the person that's helping to take care of your children. It might be the person that is going to send out emails on your behalf. It might be the person that is going to talk to your clients, right? So the people who support you and in your ecosystem are the people who support you to expand your capacity to earn more. So it could be friends who support you emotionally and energetically. Absolutely. I pay my friends to support me emotionally and energetically. In fact, for a very long time, I really didn't have many friends that I didn't pay. And in fact, I look forward to a future where all of my friends are benefiting from what I generate through being financially supported through our ecosystem. That's something that I've actually really wanted. And now, in order to do that, I have had to overcome one of the beliefs that I have needed to transform is this idea of, oh gosh, what if everybody's just in my life for the money? And oh gosh, what's wrong with me that I have to pay for my friends? But there was a time in my life where the people that were my friends weren't actually supporting me emotionally and energetically. And I needed to pay to get access to a new friend group. I needed to pay to get access to people that I could not actually be friends with because I didn't have access. But I would look at them and think, oh, yes, those are the types of people that I want to be spending my time with. And they were entrepreneurs and they were doing big things in the world. And so I bought their programs I invested in their services. And then over time, as they saw me show up and actually do my work, they became friends. They became friends. And so, yes, your minimum to be of service may include the friends who support you emotionally and energetically. And I'd like you to be earning enough where you can pay them money for their support, where you can pay them money for their support because they deserve that. And your whole ecosystem deserves that. Your whole ecosystem deserves that. And so that is the second turn of the wheel. Minimum to be of service. I am able to earn what I need, and I'm able to pay people in my ecosystem that support me to expand my capacity to earn more. That is when you become a creator of the economy. That is when you become a creator of your economy. Then you're going to learn how to steward that because that's now a bigger amount. And as I steward a bigger amount, I need to learn new skills. I need to learn how to hire. I need to learn how to make agreements. I need to learn to be a leader, right? New skills, new beliefs that I need to transform, new beliefs I need to let go of, like that I should do everything myself. Like if I'm paying somebody to do my laundry and fold my clothes and put them away, somehow I'm taking advantage of somebody. No, I am giving somebody a job that they are very happy to have. But that might be a belief. Oh, I don't deserve this, or I should be able to do it all on my own, right? I'm pretty sure my husband and I got divorced 20 years ago because I thought because he was a stay-at-home dad that we should not need any other help. That was incorrect. Incorrect. People raising children need help. And if you can afford to pay for that help, you should. And if you think that you can't afford it, I promise you a divorce is far more expensive. Far more expensive. And probably when you're having little kids, this is the biggest challenge when you're having little kids is it might be at the same time as the part of your life when you're also learning the least, earning the least. And yes, Angel, exactly. We also need help to raise our own inner children too. We cannot do that alone typically. And that requires money. That requires support. That requires paying people. Okay, so now minimum to be of service as we come around the next stage of the wheel, next turn of the wheel is going to be preferred if I can afford it. A term that I know Angel doesn't like, but it's the one that still resonates for me. Preferred if I can afford it is what I want. And I use that language, preferred if I can afford it, preferred if I can afford it, very intentionally because it's preferred. This is my preference. I want it. And if I can afford it, I'm going to have it. But in order to afford it, I'm going to need to increase my earning capacity again. I'm going to need to increase my earning capacity again. This is now going to be a new amount of money. Yes. Okay, great. I like that up level angel preferred when I can afford it. Now, this is going to require you to know the difference between what you want and what you need. And for me, what has happened as I have moved into the realm of, okay, great, people in my ecosystem have what they need. I have what I need. People in my ecosystem have what they need. Okay, I'm ready to start paying myself at the next level. Now I have to come up against all of my own pieces of worthiness. Am I actually worthy of having what I want? Is what I want good? Can I trust what I want? Right? These are some of the things you'll come up against as you move into the want, but it'll be so much easier to come up against these things and address them when everybody in your ecosystem has what they need. Because otherwise, you may hit up against beliefs that are actually extractive beliefs. Like, if you're just focusing on what you want while the people in your ecosystem don't have what they need, well, yeah, that doesn't feel good. Or at least it shouldn't, because that is extraction. That is extraction. And so it will require you actually to get in a right relationship with the people in your ecosystem about what they do need. And that's sensitive and that can be hard. And that's one of the things that you're going to learn as you steward at the capacity of minimum to be of service and as you transform. Can you all imagine how different our world might be if Jeff Bezos took this on and didn't give himself what he wanted until everybody in his ecosystem that's supporting Amazon had what they need? Could you imagine? Let's imagine that together. And then you're going to need to learn to steward that, right? You're going to need to steward a bigger amount. And I can tell you that stewarding a $10 million ecosystem is much different than stewarding a $1 million ecosystem, is much different than stewarding a $100,000 ecosystem, is much different than stewarding a $10,000 ecosystem. And if you do not stair step your stewardship and learn at each step in the way of the way, you will do what I did and make about $3 million worth of mistakes that you don't need to make. We'll talk about all that during stewardship, which is next week. But today, we're talking about generate. Today is about how do you know that you can generate what you need in alignment with your values and the time that you have. And this is where life design meets right livelihood. Life design meets right livelihood. And what could be better than designing your life around right livelihood? Right? Just imagine that your life is designed around your right livelihood. Because we spend the majority of our life earning our livelihood. So if it's right livelihood and your life design is aligned with that, you're going to have the life that you want. And then you're going to be a beacon and a role model for those that are around you. And they're going to start to see what's possible for themselves. And you might need to go first. You might need to be the first person in your family, the first person in your community. And then you're going to come up against all of the pieces that say, I can't do it because nobody else has. You might be the first. And for those of you that have made a lot of mistakes in the past, part of your journey on the Liberate stage is to forgive yourself by harvesting the lessons. And I think I saw one of you say, yeah, I used to have multi-million-dollar businesses and now I don't even have an ecosystem. Perfect. Yeah, you made mistakes that have led you back to your minimum to thrive. Thank you. Thank you for making those mistakes. Now, can you forgive yourself and harvest the lessons? Go listen to the Liberate Masterclass again so that you can, because it's critically important. So here's the truth about money, and that is that you never need to worry about money when you can contribute a service that has true value to a group of people who need it, and you know how to help them want it and pay for it. That you know how to ask for what you need in exchange for what you have to give. You know how to ask for what you need in exchange for what you have to give. This is at the foundation of Generate. I know how to ask for what I need in exchange for what I have to give. Now, there's a lot packed in. There's several packets of information being transmitted to you there, right? Because first of all, you need to know what you need in order to ask for what you need. Second, you need to know how to ask. And then third, you need to know what you have to give. So I just want to pause there with you for a moment and ask you to look at what part of that do you need to really focus on. Do you need to know what you need? Great. Go get your minimum to thrive. Do you need to know how to ask for what you need? That's the biggest challenge for most people. It's why when I started teaching, the very first thing that I ever started teaching was my client engagement system, how to get hired, sales. Oh God, sales scares most people, right? So we're going to need to be able to get right with sales by recognizing that sales done really well is a service, it's a gift, really, because it helps people. It helps people. It doesn't take anything from them. That's the old extractive reality we're leaving behind is that sales takes away. And I had to go through this journey myself. In fact, I walked away from everything I had created after building my first $2 million businesses because I wasn't right with this part. Because I didn't fully see how my selling was a gift. Because I had to get really confident that what I was selling was of true service and that I wasn't just good at sales. And then you have to know what you have to give. And if you don't yet know what you have to give, then what you might have to give is just time. It's just time. Maybe you just have hours. And when I first gave up the security of my six-figure paycheck, and I'm going to share the story of my generation with you, but I needed to trade 20 hours a month of my time, because that's what I had to give, 20 hours, I had time, 20 hours a month of my time in exchange for my rent, my office rent. I didn't have money, but I had time. And I was willing to give 20 hours a month of my time in exchange for 2,000 a month office rent. So I could go to the lawyer that I wanted to make that exchange with and say, hey, I don't have money, but I do have 20 hours of high value time, whatever they were billing me out at the big law firm before I went there. And I'll give you 20 hours. Will you give me rent? Will you not charge me for rent? And he said, yes. And so in the beginning, you might only have time. And you might also be potentially undervaluing your time. Undervaluing your time. And so the next piece of the money map tool that you're going to do once you get to your minimum to thrive is the time part. Now, ideally, you've all begun tracking your time. Did I give that assignment last week or I didn't give it yet? No. Okay. Then you're going to start tracking your time. So leaving today, you are going to enter into a time tracking study to start to look at where your time is going. Very critical. You need to see where your time is going before you can start working with your time in a good way. You need to start seeing where it's going. And so I'm going to give you a time tracking study exercise to do where you track your time and where it's going right now. So you can just write that down, time tracking. You could start it today. You could start it tomorrow. And whatever is your favorite calendaring tool, you're going to set up a time tracking template for yourself. And from the minute you wake up until the minute you go to bed, ideally for at least 1 week, you are going to track everything that you are doing in 15-minute increments. And you're going to note it down. We've also created a spreadsheet template that you can use. But I find that the best way to do it is to just set it up in your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar and make it its own separate calendar so you're not tracking it on the calendar that you use for actually scheduling. And you literally, right, for this 2 hour block that we're together, you'll put it's a look back. It is not a look forward. It's a look back. How did you spend this 2 hour block? Financial Liberation Challenge, continuing education. That's what that is. It is continuing education. And you do not write it down. You don't wait till the end of the day, and you don't wait till night, and you certainly don't wait till the end of the week. You will not remember. You've got to do it. And every time you transition to your next thing, and it will slow down your context switching a bit, but that's okay for 1 week. You need to know where your time is going. And ideally, your energy and attention, right? So you can make a little note next to the time thing. How did I feel while I was doing this thing? How did I feel? Up or down? And so, Lara, maybe you want to go ahead and post the template now is fine. But please note, everybody, that you don't need to use this spreadsheet. You all don't need to post the board time here. Lara's just going to post it for you. But I love that. I love that. You guys know I like to use that for feedback, so thank you. You don't need to use this spreadsheet template. You can literally, in fact, let me just show you really easily how easy it can be on your calendar to track your time. I'm going to give you a little peek, by the way, at my calendar. For those of you that have been doing Plan Your Week with us every week, this won't freak you out. But if you haven't been doing Plan Your Week, it could. But ultimately, we want your calendar to look something like this. And your time blocking, and then you'll create a time blocking template calendar. These are all ways that you're going to use your calendar to take back your time. But let's look at a time tracking calendar. Okay, so time tracking would be, okay, what time did I wake up this morning? 7:30. So I'm going to start tracking from the minute I wake up, 7:30 in the morning, I woke up. And what is the very first thing that I did? Morning drink and messages, right? So oftentimes I'm making my morning drink, I'm leaving people messages, and I probably did that until about 8 a.m. And that's going to then show up on my calendar, my time tracking calendar. Note that this is my time tracking calendar. There's nothing else on it, right? And then I know that here I am from noon to 2, Financial Liberation Challenge. Okay. And that's going to go till 2. Now, because I didn't time track between 8 a.m. and noon, I would have to go back and look at my calendar to see what I did because I certainly cannot remember it right now, which is why I want you all to do it every time you switch to the next thing. But you can also use the spreadsheet. Okay. And yes, that's right, Richard. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. And so we're going to grab it and we're going to capture it and we're going to track it. And then we're going to make the very best use of it because this is how we become masters and creators of our own economy. So that is a looking back. That is a looking back. And you all can start doing that. And I'll repeat what I said is that you will never need to worry about money again when you know without question that you have a service, a high value service that you can contribute to a group of people who need it, and you know how to help them want it and pay for it. Or you know how to ask for what you need. How much do you need to pay me in exchange for what you have to give? What is the service I have to give? Now, there are times where you may ask for what you need in exchange for what you have to give, and you're not giving a service because you haven't dialed this in, right? You see people post GoFundMe's a lot because they've gotten to a point where they didn't do this work. And now they need to ask for a handout because they haven't figured out how to give. Or maybe they've gotten themselves into a place where they're in such rock bottom that they need help to maybe even just get to survival so that they can get to their minimum to thrive. Okay. Okay. So, real wealth, abiding wealth, a wealth that you can count on is your ability to solve problems and meet needs. What I've seen again and again with people who get, who have like an exit, a business exit, or, they get extraordinarily wealthy through um, inheritance, right? They inherit a bunch of money or they have an exit. Maybe they win the lottery, right? Is that they're terrified of losing what they have, even more so than you are if you're not in that situation, because they are certain they cannot make more. They are certain they cannot make more. And when we are afraid that we cannot make more, then we have this deep-seated insecurity and fear. And it doesn't matter how much we have, because if the stock market crashes or the crypto market crashes or inflation goes up or anything outside of our control happens with the economy, I won't be able to make more. So I have to hoard what I have. This is where hoarding comes from. And even if you have enough savings to retire, how can you know that you can rely on that? And so the only real liberation is knowing that you can offer and invite and give in exchange for what you need. And ultimately in exchange for what you want. And so security, it doesn't come from what you have, it comes from what you know how to create with what you have. And that's where generate comes in. So I want to just share with you my evolution of generating income, and then we're going to look at entrepreneurial archetypes, 8 entrepreneurial archetypes that I identified that are business models, revenue models that you can use and stack. But it's really important that you use these revenue models in the right order. In the right order. And I see a lot of people do them in the wrong order and then they run out of money. Or they get uh, out over their skis and they give up. And so we want you to do them in the right order so that you know that you have everything that you need always. So also, I do see that some of you are asking me for access to the workbook in school. So Lara and or Kara, if you can just let people know what they need to do that besides messaging me, that would be great. Okay, so I started my career earning money working in a pizza shop, taking phone orders. And I don't know if any of you have ever done anything like that before, but for me, I would have dreams in the middle of the night of, I can't even remember how I used to answer the phone, but like, this is blah, blah, blah pizza. Can I take your order? Like have dreams about that at 14. And I did that because I knew that I didn't trust my parents to support me financially. I didn't trust my parents to support me financially. Okay, Kara, I see that you purchased, sorry, you posted the link for people to purchase the workbook, which is great. If you don't have the workbook and you want the workbook, we do have a workbook and a notes pack for each session. And if you want that, you could use the link. I think it's $44. And if you already purchased the workbook and you want access, Kara's going to let you know what to do because maybe there's some confusion about that. Okay. So I didn't trust my parents to support me financially. They were clearly had no idea what was going on financially. And many of you might have that as well, where you didn't trust your parents to support you financially. And that's a pretty scary place for a kid to be, right? So if that was you, just think of what your nervous system took on in many ways. And also, many of us who become self-made, that was the case, right? I think of, the founder of Interactive Brokers, who's one of the wealthiest men in the planet right now, and he came from Hungary to the United States with $11. Certainly did not trust his parents to take care of him financially. And if you look at many wealthy people, that's how they started out. They had to figure it out. And once we get wealthy, it can be very easy to think that we need to give that to our parents. Sorry, to our kids in order for them to be successful. And that is not true. That is not true. Our children do not need to struggle in order to create their own success. That is a belief that we inherited because it's what supported us to become what we did, but we do not need to pass that on to our kids. And that belief that I could not trust my parents was a conscious belief. I knew it. I knew it. And and so I started working at 14 because I wanted to be in control of my own financial reality. I had some unconscious beliefs as well about money, but that one was very conscious. And so I started working, and I always worked as a waitress or in a restaurant. At one point I did work for my dad on the phone. He had a phone room doing sales, and that's where I learned sales. But I was selling things that I did not believe in. And that was hard for me. At one point, I also did sell used cars, learned sales there too. And in many respects, learned how I didn't want to do sales. And then, but really was a waitress. That was like my real bread and butter. Like that's how I earned money. I put myself through college. I even put myself through law school. I got a $100,000 loan to go to law school from the federal government. I got some grants, some Pell grants. And um, and so that was, what I did in order to get through law school. And then coming out of law school, because I did so well in law school, I got recruited to one of the best law firms in the country and got plopped into, at like 28 years old, a six-figure paycheck. I think that we started at 165 back then. That was more money than I'd ever earned in my life. Oh my God, $165,000 a year. I should feel rich. And yet I didn't. I felt poor. I felt broke because, well, half the paycheck went out the door, right? Retirement account, insurance, taxes. And then there was the mortgage I needed to pay because we had bought a house thanks to a $35,000 inheritance from my kid's dad's mom. We bought a house, so now we had the mortgage, plus he was a stay-at-home dad, uh, on and on and on. And I spent every day feeling broke, and that this paycheck was actually a cage. I really learned the meaning of golden handcuffs, and then they kept paying me more every year. And I could see how the more they paid me, the more my costs would go up. That's just normal, by the way, in many cases. And I could see that if I didn't leave, I was never going to be able to leave. I was going to get stuck there. I was going to get stuck there, and then I could end up there forever. And I wasn't happy. And I wasn't happy because I knew that it wasn't really making the difference in people's lives that I wanted to make. And I wasn't happy because I had an hour-long commute each way. And I wasn't happy because I didn't have any control over my schedule. And I wasn't happy because I wasn't able to be the kind of mom that I wanted to be to my kids. And so my first transition was from the security of that six-figure paycheck into my own business. I didn't know anything about business whatsoever. And it was really sink or swim. What I did know is that I had a valuable service. I knew I had a valuable service. And that valuable service was estate planning. I knew that I wanted to do estate planning. I wanted to serve people in my community with estate planning. And I thought that I could charge $2,500 per client that I served for an estate plan. And I thought that if I just got four clients a month at $2,500, that'd be 10,000 a month. And that was like equivalent to my take home or maybe even more than my take home. And so I thought, okay, that if I can get four clients a month. So I had a plan. What I didn't know is how that plan was going to fail. What I didn't know is that that plan did not take into account business expenses or how hard it would be to get clients, or that not everybody I met with would hire me, and that I didn't know anything about business. But I had a valuable service. And that valuable service that I could offer on a one-to-one basis, and that people would value it and people would want it. And what I eventually recognized is, oh, I have to learn how to ask for what I need in exchange for what I have to give. I have this thing called an estate plan that I can give, and I need to ask for what I need to be able to provide that service in a very valuable way. And that took about a year and a half for me to really figure out, with a huge number of mistakes along the way. And many of you have now benefited from that by not having to go through that journey of learning the hard way by making it all up on your own. You've used that system now, and you're using that system to generate. So that was number one. And I call that, you're going to hear me talk about these entrepreneurial archetypes. I call that archetype model a sage guide. I'm providing a one-to-one service that transforms people in some way. And you're gonna have a slide deck, you're gonna have all of these entrepreneurial archetypes, but that one was called the Sage Guide. And I didn't know that at the time, by the way. Those entrepreneurial archetypes didn't come through until much, much, much later. So then I mastered being the Sage Guide. I mastered the one-to-one service. I mastered being able to meet people, educate them, have them meet with me one-to-one, and pay me for a one-to-one service. And I got up to $1 million business with about 20 to 25 new clients per month in that model. So that was much more than my own minimum to thrive, right? I created an ecosystem. I had a whole team. In fact, I had 4 other lawyers that were working with me. I had my client services director, my receptionist, my drafting coordinator, my funding coordinator. Right? I built a whole team to be able to serve these clients. I knew how to generate, but I did not know how to steward. And so I made about $1 million worth of mistakes. And it was incredibly difficult on my heart because I was a terrible leader. I was a terrible, terrible steward of resources. And then I decided, okay, I've mastered this. And I'd mastered it such to the degree that I didn't really want to serve clients anymore one-to-one because I was getting bored with the serving of the clients. Because it was the same thing again and again and again and again. And so I happened to be on a plane and I read an article by Dan Kennedy. And it was literally as if he was speaking directly to me. And he said, would you love to take your experience and knowledge and expertise and make money while you sleep? Yes, I would. I would really like that. I would like that a lot. Thanks, Dan. And it turns out that article was an advertorial. It was an ad that looked like an article. And I went on and I bought everything that he had to teach me about making this leap from being a sage guide one-to-one service delivery provider, delivering a high value service, to becoming a star guide where I was going to go one to many. And I began to create courses and I began to teach in the one to many way. But that in and of itself took me about a year and a half to figure out how to do with great expense. Because even though I bought everything that Dan sold to me, when I put it into action, it like would fall flat. It wouldn't work. The very first course I created was called the Kids Protection Plan, and I was going to sell it for $397, and I spent about $25,000 to create it. And then I went out in the world and I started trying to sell it. And the first day that I sold one, I was so excited, $397. But then I realized I didn't know how to sell anymore. And I ended up hiring a lot of the wrong people. I ended up getting ripped off. I ended up getting scammed, but I didn't let it stop me. And in August of 2006, I had just finished my divorce and I had some time off without my kids and I decided, okay, I need to get up close and personal with Dan and I need to go to his live event and learn from him directly. That's going to be the next thing. And I took $3,000 out of my line of credit because even though I was making great money in my law firm, I was spending all of it trying to learn how to go from the one to one to the one to many, plus paying my child support and alimony, plus paying all of the divorce bills that I had taken on. Plus, I had given, my husband half of everything we had. So I was like, I had a line of credit that I had gotten at that point. I'd never used it before. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use it. And $3,000. Terrified. I'm flying on the plane to Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio from LA, and I'm praying. Okay, okay, Spirit, I am showing up in the best way that I can. I am giving this everything. If you want me to deliver at this one to many level, please, please give me the resources that I need. Help me meet the people that I need. Show me the way, show me the way, show me the way, show me the way. Get to this event. And the very first person that I met, and by the way, I entered the event in my Anne Klein pinstripe suit, right? Like I'm all fancy, my big shoulder pads. And the first person I meet is this man, Craig. And he's wearing a Grateful Dead hat, a green t-shirt with a pocket, and jeans and flip-flops. And immediately my entire system says, oh, thank God, there's people like me here. But I didn't look like that, right? I had my costume on, my business costume. So he's the first person that I met there. The second person that I met there was this magician. And this magician named Dave, and he was at the bar that night before the event started. And he was doing magic tricks and making me laugh. And I was like, "Oh, this is fun. There's people here that I really like. This is great." But then I'm halfway through the event, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh no, I'm not learning anything new. I'm not learning anything new. I already know all of this. I already learned all of this in Dan's programs. What am I gonna do, God?" And in that moment, it was as if I was struck by inspiration, which I was. You need to get into Dan's mastermind. This was the inspiration. You need to get into Dan's mastermind. Okay, great. So I go in the break and I go to talk to his partner, Bill, and I say, Bill, and there's a whole crowd around him, and I say, Bill, I am a new info marketer. That's what it's called, being an info marketer. I am a new info marketer. And I need to get into Dan's mastermind. I'm like, so close. I'm like, right there. And Bill looks at me and he says, sorry, there's no room. And I'm like, kind of humiliated, like, kind of like, oh God, okay, what do I do? I like can't get in. And I hear a message from Spirit, I believe, and or at least my higher self, and it says, okay, just ask the next question. I'm like, okay, what's the next question? And I was about to ask him, okay, well, can I hire you? And he literally says to me, and you can't even hire me. There's no room. And again, I'm like, like my ego is crushed and like feeling super humiliated. But I'm like, I got to stand up and ask the next question. Okay, like, what's the next question? Do you have any other ideas for me? And thank God I asked that question because he looks around the room and he points at Dave and he says, go talk to that guy. Maybe he can help you. And it was the magician from the night before. And so I go talk to him and I say, hey, Dave, can you help me? And Bill said that maybe you can help me. He says, well, what do you want to do? And I told him a little bit about my situation. I'm a lawyer and I've like built this law practice and it's $1 million a year. And I want to start teaching, I want to take this out to the world, right? One to many. I want to go from one to one to one to many. And he said, well, how much money do you want to make? And I said, 10K a month. If I can make an extra 10K a month, that would be a game changer for me. Because with that extra 10K a month, I could pay my child support and alimony and I could pay my rent on, I had to move out of my house and rent a place. And I could pay my rent and my child support and my alimony. And then I would just feel so relieved. So that like even if in my law firm we didn't engage any new clients, which I knew we would, but had the whole team I was supporting, that I would have this extra 10K a month. Or if I wanted to close down the law firm, if I wanted to indulge the escape fantasy that I had, that I'd be able to do that. 10K a month, it would change everything. He said, oh, no problem. Now, I had already invested 25K in these other coaches that had promised me the same thing, and that every call I was on with them, I would leave more confused than ever before. I had already invested 25K in creating a product called the Kids Protection Plan. Now here's this guy, and he's saying, no problem. Can I really believe him? But I did, and here's why I believed him, because he had already done what I wanted to do. He had been a magician. And he had been booking like 3 shows a month as a magician. And he couldn't support his family on 3 shows a month. So he had hired Dan Kennedy to teach him how to book more shows. And he became Dan Kennedy's top student. And he went from booking 3 shows a month to 57 shows a month. But he couldn't possibly deliver on 57 shows a month. And so he began to teach other magicians how he did what he did. And that was exactly the path I wanted to take, right? That was the path I had taken. I'd learned how to engage clients and built my practice, but I like couldn't actually fulfill on all the demand, especially for the kids protection plan, because I wanted everybody to be able to have it. And I couldn't serve them one to one. So he said, okay, you pay me. And I can't remember if it was, I think it was that he gave me 2 package options, and one was like 7,500 and one was 30,000. And with the 30,000, he was going to do it with me, not just teach me, but do it with me. And he let me make payments, and I figured, okay, I know I've already spent all this money and wasted all this money, and I'm in my line of credit. And if he can get me to 10K a month, it's worth it for the 30K. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go for the 30K. And that includes me flying out to Atlanta to meet with him for the day. And I do that. And a lot of things transpired, but the big takeaway, this is for you, is I brought him a list of everything I was working on. Some of the projects 10% done, some of them just ideas, some of them 80% done. And of course on that list was the kids protection plan, the thing that I was selling for $397. And he said, throw that out. You're not going to sell that. I was like, what do you mean? I just put 25K into this and this is the thing I want to be doing. And he said, no, you need a win. He said, what is the thing that is on this list that is the highest value thing that you can sell to the people who need it the most and have the resources to pay for it? And it was that I knew how to engage clients in my law firm. And every lawyer needed to know how to do that. And they could pay for it. And he said, okay, great. Well, then in 6 weeks from now, you're going to do a webinar. Actually, it was a teleseminar. We didn't have webinars back then. This was 2006. It was a phone call, a teleseminar. He said, you're going to do this teleseminar, you're going to do this phone call, and you're going to sell this client engagement system. And I was like, okay, I didn't have a list. I didn't know how to do a teleseminar. I didn't know anything, but he literally walked me through it step by step. He gave me everything that I needed, and I worked overtime and I worked nights and weekends and I modeled everything and I did it and I did it and I did it. And I actually bought a little bit more time because wasn't going to be able to do it in 6 weeks. So I think it was maybe at the beginning of November. I held my very first teleseminar on the phone, 750 lawyers registered from a group that I was in. And I sold a program called the Client Engagement System. And my biggest prayer in that moment was that I was going to sell more than one because I needed to create it. And I was going to create it based on how, people buy it. I'm going to create it. And I was going to create it on the fly because I did not have it ready. I knew what I was going to deliver, but it was not created yet. This is very important for you all to hear. Almost everything that I have sold before it was ever created. And when you're bootstrapping, you've got to get good at that. You speak it into existence with the knowing that you are going to deliver on it. And part of you delivering on it is speaking it into existence and making sure that people wanted it. For example, this financial liberation challenge was not created. Now, I knew what it was going to be. I've been developing this body of work for many, many, many years. I've delivered it in parts and pieces, but here it is. I am delivering it to you right now. And on that phone call in 67 minutes, we did $117,000 in sales. $117,000 in sales in a 67-minute phone call. And it changed my life. And I was running around my house screaming, oh my, it changed my life. And yes, and it's changed many of your lives. Many of you are here, have used that client engagement system. Jill, been with me that long. And many of you are using it to this day. It is actually the heart of the life and legacy planning session process that you use. So it's iterated many times. And that was my transition from one to one to one to many star guide. And I had to face my fears around visibility. I had to face my fears around imposter syndrome, which I'm going to talk about in a moment because many of you asked about it. I had to face my fears to go to that next level. I had to face my fears of letting go of a whole body of work that I loved, that I wanted to deliver, but I wasn't ready to deliver it yet because it actually takes a lot of money to deliver on a low price offer. Over time, I navigated into what we call star creator, licensing my content and my intellectual property, creating impact through systems that scale. And I'm still at my next edge. Of course, I am, and you are as well. I'm at my next edge with you, and that is from star creator, licensing content and creating intellectual property and learning how to be a leader at a big scale into the next level, which is star connector. And there's been ways that I have been stuck actually for some years here, moving from this star creator into star connector because there's things that I still need to face in order to do that, just as you each do on each turn of the wheel as you step into your next entrepreneurial archetype. And the star connector is someone that builds a big audience and then connects people through their audience, either to their own products or other people's products. And, while you're all here right now, eventually, when I fully embody the star connector, there will be thousands of people on these calls, not hundreds, thousands. And this is what the journey to financial liberation looks like in real time. A continuing evolution. A continuing evolution, always being clear on where you are now, where you're going next, what you're working on in the process, what is your edge, getting the support where you need it, and using your resources wisely along every step of the way. And so the first one is knowing that you can generate in alignment with your values. And you can count on being able to generate 1, 2 million a year or less, depending on how much time you want to put in, right? But you can generate between 250 to a million, 2 or 3 million a year. That, right? This is where we get into business. You can always generate with a job. So let's just start with that. You can always generate with a job. Laura Hollick was a mail carrier. And within the entrepreneurial archetypes, by the way, there's plenty of jobs. And when you approach your job with an entrepreneurial spirit, everything really begins to shift for you because you can be an intrapreneur, where you really begin to look at your role as a revenue generating function within an ecosystem, within an enterprise. And the more you begin to look at how you can contribute to the capacity of the ecosystem growing, you don't necessarily need to have your own business. You can work within that business. But if you are going to have your own business, then you're going to want to have a business that generates between 250,000 to about 3 million with your one-to-one service. And you can count on consistent income from that business when you have three things: a high value service, a system for getting hired or engaging clients, and a way to bring people into that system through your marketing. Delivery of a high value service, something that people need and want, with a specific tangible transformation, result, or outcome. Right? That's your delivery. This is your foundation. This is your promise of value and your ability to deliver on that. A system for sales or engagement, for inviting people to say yes, including some sort of a conversion event in the beginning, which is going to be a meeting, a one-to-one meeting with you, and eventually can broaden out to a workshop, a webinar, classes. But it starts with that one-to-one. And then a way to get people into that either meeting with you or your presentation or teleseminar or webinar, and that's your marketing. Service, sales, and marketing. That is at the foundation of your business. And most people fail at generate not because they cannot serve. Not because they cannot serve. Sometimes it's because you don't believe in what you serve. Sometimes it's because you don't have a system for serving. Sometimes it's because you don't have something high value. That could be. And that means if that's the case, then you need to work a job until you've created something that you can really believe in. That's really high value. But most people fail because they do not calendar time for sales and marketing. Instead, they try to fill their schedule with service delivery. And then they either undersell or oversell. And if you undersell, then you don't have anybody to serve. And if you oversell, then you end up under delivering and you get a bad reputation and you don't believe in yourself and you lose self-trust. So we need to map our forecast, our revenue model, how much we need, to our calendar. A cash flow forecast and a calendar to match is your guiding light. A cash flow forecast and a calendar to match. What do I need to earn minimum to thrive? And then what does my calendar need to look like? How many hours? How few hours do I need to do I have to serve? How few hours do I have to serve? Knowing that I also need to map in sales and marketing. Knowing that I also need to map in continuing education like this and administrative work or leading an administrative team, because you're not going to do your own bookkeeping. Eventually, you're not going to handle your own email or your calendar. That's all admin work. You're going to hire somebody to do those things. And before you map in any of that, you need to map in family time. And before you map in any of that, you need to map in self-care. So can you begin to see that when you map in self-care, family time, admin, continuing education, sales and marketing, you don't actually have that much time to serve. When you get really clear on how little time you have to serve when you are a business owner, you begin to be able to price and package your services properly. You begin to be able to actually ask for what you really need and not undercharge. Because when you undercharge, you cannot deliver on the service. You run out of time. And when you run out of time, you begin to beat yourself up. And then you begin to blame your ADHD. And then you begin to procrastinate even more. And then now all of a sudden you're on a downward spiral of dread and doom and not believing in yourself, right? How many of you have experienced that reality? Yeah, Jill, I am so glad that you're seeing some issues. You didn't map in your self-care time. You didn't map in your education. You didn't map in your marketing. And of course, you're running out of time. And of course, you're beating yourself up. This is literally why we run Plan Your Week every Monday morning. I never imagined that I would show up for something every Monday morning. And now, for the past 18 months, we've been with you every Monday morning. So, in order to know if you're undercharging, you need to know how little time you have to serve and how much you need to earn in that time that you have to serve. This is the heart of the money map. This is the heart of the money map. So you're going to use the new money map tool, ideally, and you are going to map. I'm going to go in there myself right now. And you are going to, oh, ruh-roh. Can you all post the link here so we could see if we can even get into it? Go ahead and post the link. Great. Okay. Kara. Yeah, great. Lara's going to do it. So you're going to go into your money map tool and you are going to, maybe you have to use, yeah, it does not seem to be working for me. Okay, so Lara, if you could also check the short link, the moneymaptool.org link, and if it's not working, please be in touch with Zaya on that. Okay, so you are going to go into your money map tool and you are going to map your time. Now, remember, so far, ideally, you've mapped your minimum to thrive. Okay, I'm just going to open this and share my screen so that you see it. I'm really happy that we've created this. This is an up level, by the way, right? Everything you do is iterative. Everything you're going to do is iterative. Please don't get stuck in perfectionism or waiting to put things into the world until they're perfect, because if I did that, none of this would be here. This is an iteration, and this one isn't even perfect, by the way. These little sayings from me, I have not yet reviewed. I have no idea if I would say most people spend 25 to 35% on their housing. That's something that my team built in there. But it's okay, right? And I would say, remember, minimum isn't about deprivation. It's about knowing your baseline. I'd probably say something about thriving. Don't wait until it's perfect, right? So ideally, you've all now done your minimum to thrive. And by the way, this little icon right here allows you to take notes, right? So for me, for housing, my minimum to thrive, for example, minimum to thrive. At this point, now that my kids are out of the house, I could probably do minimum to thrive, even though I've never lived alone before. I could probably do a 1 bedroom, or even a studio. I lived in a studio for 2 weeks. It was fine. I think I could live there. So 1 bedroom or even a studio. And I imagine here in Boulder, let's say that I was going to live in Boulder. Actually, it is also, or a room in a community house, right? I don't need to leave the community house. It could be a room in a community house. And I invite you to take notes. because um and then by the way, I would also put the date here, right? So 10/27/25, because you're going to want to look back on this in the future and see what was your reality back then. So I'm going to save the note. I can see we're going to need to do something to make saving go more quickly. And I'm imagining in Boulder, I don't know, let's just say 2,500 a month, right? For that minimum to thrive. So then you're going to go through and you're going to do that whole column, right? And you're going to get to the end of it and you're going to see that this is your minimum to thrive. And then I'm going to continue to time. Okay, I'm going to continue to time. And let's see if it's going to. Okay, so in time, you're going to put in what is the minimum hours per week you need to sleep. So I see we're going to change this, by the way. If we can get this over to Zaya, that we want to put in for sleep, we actually want to say what is the minimum hours per night that we want to sleep, and then let the system do the work on calculating it per week. But we can all do it right now. So I used to be able to get by on 6 hours a night, 5 hours a night. But ever since I started to go through the second half of my life, that is, or the second, third, whatever we're calling it, I really need 7. I really need 7, and ideally it's 8, but my minimum is 7, right? So I'm going to do 7 times 7. That's 49. I could do that math in my head, and I don't nap, right? Now, if I wanted to just put in my preferred would actually be, honestly, to be in bed for like 9 hours. So 9 times 7, so that's 63. That's probably my preferred. Okay, so I can just put that in there. And now it's telling you how many hours you have left to allocate per week. And so then how much exercise and movement? We all need to move our bodies, y'all. We all need to move our bodies. So how many hours per week do you want to move your body? Like for me, ideally, I want to at least walk for an hour a day. That would be most ideal. So that's 7 hours. Um, and probably if I could do just an hour a day, that's fine. But my preferred is probably really 14. That would be my preferred. Okay. And so you could just go through and do at least your minimum, right? And notice that we are starting with self-care. And then we're going to time with your relationships. And then you're going to get into your home and life management. And then we're not getting to your revenue generating time until the end. Now you're going to need to note if you have a business, you switch it, right? Because if you have work, you're going to see how little amount of time you have left for work after you calendar everything else. And then if you own a business, this time for work actually separates into 5. Why? Because if you have a job, there's only one thing, right? Your job. You're getting paid for all those hours you're working. But if you have a business, now we need to break it down into marketing, sales, delivery, admin, and continuing education. And really, the only thing that you're going to get paid for, depending on your revenue model, which we're going to look at in a minute, you may only be getting paid on the service side. You may only be getting paid to deliver. Now, if you sell other people's products, then you may also get paid for sales. But otherwise, what you're ultimately looking at if you have a business is what's the number right here in your delivery? Because that is then going to tell you when you look at, so let's just say that I have 10 hours a week for delivery, and I'm just going to skip everything else and just put in 10 hours a week for delivery. And now I'm going to get a back of the napkin money map number. A back of the napkin money map number, which is going to tell me, because I didn't fill all this in, but it's going to tell me that I need to be earning whatever this number is in, oh, where's my service? Okay, so this is the piece we're going to work on next in my hours for work. So we'll work on this piece next because ultimately it's my 10 hours. So I need to be earning 2,500 a month in the 10 hours I have available for delivery. So this is going to be the next piece of the tool that we're going to work on. Okay, so Lara, if you can actually have Zaya watch this part. Um, and so then that will tell me if I have 10 hours a week and I need to earn 2,500 a month, but it's really not going to be 2,500 a month, right? It's going to be like, let's say 10,000 a month. That's going to give us our money map number. And so that's what you get to start working on. That's what you get to start working on next. Okay. And is getting clear on your money map number at your minimum to thrive with your time allocation. With your time allocation allocated at your minimums. Okay, so you're going to work on that. And then let's just look at as well the entrepreneurial archetypes that you can use to earn. That you can use to earn. And Lara, I'm not seeing my slide deck for that. Really handy. So if you could just send that to me, I'm going to pull those up. So, Deborah, the instructions for the money map are ideally it's intuitive. If it's not, please come into the school and let me know. I did an entire course on the money map. It was a $1,000 course, no, $2,000 course back in 2015. That is in your Eyes Wide Open mentorship materials. If you wanted to like go through the course because the tool itself wasn't intuitive, you have that, and you have access to that. Okay. But I'm thinking that the tool is actually intuitive. At least I hope so. Okay. Let's talk briefly about the entrepreneurial archetypes because part of what I also want you to know between now and when we are together again is where are you now? What entrepreneurial archetype are you focused on now? And where are you going next? Because it is through utilizing the entrepreneurial archetypes that you are going to be able to layer in revenue streams. But some of you are trying to layer in revenue streams too quickly and you're getting confused and bogged down and you're spending money on things that you should not be. And yes, Jason, really important. And if you on the money map tool, um, very, very important that as you're going through it, that you do not miss the, let me go back, the if you own a business toggle. And I'm going to see if I can go back. Yeah. So it's very critically important that you shift this work one. So this should say job. And then it should say right next to it. Ideally, it would say right next to it. If you own a business, toggle the own the business so that it breaks that apart. And for now, just do your minimum. Just do your minimum. And don't worry about this delegate check mark yet. That is for a next level. And then I'm going to work with my dev team on the final dashboard piece. And we're going to work on that this week. I didn't want to wait to get it out to you though. Okay. Okay, let's talk entrepreneurial archetypes. And we've got 17 minutes left. I'm going to see if I can do it all in 17 minutes. And I also want to talk about imposter syndrome. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. I want it to be a slideshow, but then I can't see you guys. Let's see. Hmm. Why is that happening?
Want me to share?
Um, yeah, if you could share, that'd be great. Thanks, because I want to be able to see you guys. Okay,
Just a second.
so so the entrepreneurial archetypes are revenue models. And I created these when I realized that I needed to sort out in my own mind all the different revenue models that I could utilize. And so I created 8 entrepreneurial archetypes, and each one of them is based on 2 primary entrepreneurial archetypes, the star archetype and the sage archetype. And within the star archetypes, you could just go to that next slide of the 2 primary ones. You've got your star archetype of your one to many. And then you're typically focusing on scope of your impact rather than your depth of impact. And then the sage archetype is one to one and providing outcomes that are really focused at depth, right? You're working one to one with somebody. And then within each of these primary archetypes, there's 4 secondary expressions: the supporter, the guide, the connector, or the creator. And so you're going to match the primary with a secondary. So let's just go ahead and look at the next slide with all 8 of them together so you can see how they work. There's I like to start with the guides. Let's start with the supporters at the base. There's a star supporter and a sage supporter. There's a star guide and a sage guide. There's a star creator and a sage creator. There's a star connector and a sage connector. And we're going to give you these slides so that you can, and they'll be in the school, so that you can just look, where are you now and what are you going to layer in next? So we'll start with the sage supporter. The sage supporter is the person who is behind the scenes. And the sage supporter is generally a job, but you could be doing it as your own business, right? So this is a project manager, a virtual assistant, an office manager, a client services director. You're working in somebody else's business. You could do it as your own business intrapreneurially, or even as your own business. So for example, Lara and Kevin have their own business, but they're more star supporter, which we'll get to in a moment. The sage supporter is going to need clear direction from somebody who is actually going out and getting the clients. Typically, the sage supporter is going to have one or more clients, but not going to have a lot of clients, right? You might have as many as like 3 if you're doing it as a business, but it's really one-to-one deep work, supporting somebody. Okay, let's go to the next one. The Sage Guide is the transformational mentor who leads others to breakthroughs. And you might be surprised, lawyers and accountants and doctors and therapists, this is you, right? You're doing the one-to-one work, actually guiding people through a transformational process where they are different at the beginning than they are at the end of working with you. Okay, so that's a Sage Guide model. Yes, that is you. That is you, Angel. And by the way, when we come across your model that you are using, please feel free to share that in the chat when you recognize the model that you're using. And one other thing I want to say about this is that with these models, they're not archetypes in the context, like I didn't take your birthday and determine and what you are based on your birthday. This is a revenue model that you're choosing, and you can just layer in additional revenue models. But you want to be making money with one before you layer in more. Okay? Right. And so, Angel, you are utilizing the Sage Guide, but you're layering in others. Okay? That's your foundation. Your foundation is the one-to-one work, the Sage Guide. And now you're layering in, let's go to the next. Sage Connector. Sage Connectors are powerful behind the scenes, typically community builders who are facilitators, space holders, mediators, investors, venture capitalists, angel investors, right? Typically, they're bringing together the resources, the people, Sage Connector, quiet catalysts. Sage Creator is the artist, the innovator, the strategist, web designers, copywriters, app developers, painters, jewelry makers. Okay, go to the next one. Star supporter. Star supporter. These are the powerhouse right-hand leaders that every creator, guide, and connector dreams of having. CEOs, not founder CEOs, right? If you're a founder CEO, this is typically not, you're not a star supporter. You're probably a star creator. Star supporters are CEOs who are running companies that they didn't found. Online business managers, trainers, head coaches, team managers. Right? Do we have any star supporters on with us? Or do you know any star supporters? Who do you all know that's a star supporter? If there aren't any star supporters here. Yeah, your ops manager, Allison, Ariel. Yep, exactly. Your assistant, exactly, star supporter. Yeah. Your assistant potentially could be Sage supporter on the move to star supporter. So that's worth looking at actually. Okay, and the next one. Star guide. And this is the visionary teacher who transforms many through their message. These are workshop leaders, motivational speakers, authors. Okay, and you're going to earn money through one-to-many scale programs, courses, experiences. Yep. Yes. Yes, Sophia, you very much are and have always been. I'm curious if you've ever been actually any of the other ones. But Star Guide. I find that the people who want to start with Star Guide sometimes can have a very difficult time doing that financially because it can be expensive to start as a star guide and maybe don't always have that foundation of financial resource or support because you didn't start at Sage Guide. You didn't start with that one-to-one service. So sometimes star guides end up burning out before they make it because they don't have the financial support that they need to build the infrastructure and the ecosystem to support them, to support so many. Not always, but sometimes that occurs. Oh, Tani, it's so good to see you here. I'm so glad you're here. It's wonderful. Star Connector. Star connectors are the natural networkers and community builders. You're really good at building a huge audience. You're not necessarily great at creating products. So you selling other people's products is the best oftentimes. If you're an affiliate marketer, you're a network marketer, you're a telesummit or talk show host, you're a brand ambassador, you're a PR specialist. You don't even need to have your own products, but you do have to have really great products to sell other people's products. Okay. And then Star Creator is the producer of original or innovative work, whether it's content, systems, tools, methodologies, and you are going to license that work typically. So these are authors, thought leaders, visionary entrepreneurs, etc. So I want you just to look at all of these and choose where you are now. How are you earning money now, and where do you want to go next? Because ultimately, that's what's going to allow you to chart the map from where you are now to where you want to go next. And that doesn't always mean you leave behind where you are now. It might mean that you layer in and you build upon, right? I am utilizing many of these entrepreneurial archetypes now because I'm layering them and I'm going to my next star connector. I want to build a huge audience and connect this audience with our products, the products of my companies, but also other people's products that I love. Star Connector. But that doesn't mean I'm leaving behind Star Creator and even Star Guide. And even guess what? As we develop our next service model, I'm working with people one-to-one again, Sage Guide. So we circle these throughout, but we want to be clear. And for most of you, you just need to master one to stop worrying about money. You just need to master the one that you are mastering first and foremost so you can stop worrying about money. Okay, so we gave you a little bit of exercise to do here to choose the paths that resonate with you. Can check box. We'll support you to identify your now and your next. And you'll write those down. And you will share about that in school where you can all support each other to get clear on this. Okay. So before we end today, I want to just remind you that we do have a VIP support option for those of you that want more help with this than we provide in the challenge itself. You want me hands-on with you on the 2 calls the week of November 10th, and you want access to me through the private WhatsApp group. If you know that you want to get into VIP, we have a page that you can go to sign up for that now. If you don't want to wait to see if you win it in the draw. And so that is at eyeswideopenlife.com/VIP. Yes, these slides will be available for you in school. So that's eyeswideopenlife.com/VIP. If you want to win, then you can take anything that you learned today, a screenshot from today. In fact, Lara, if you want to just spotlight me again, if people want to take a screenshot. In fact, let me just change my name here in case you guys are going to use a screenshot of me. I wanted to say the right thing on here. How do I change my name when I'm spotlighted? It's not working. Okay, maybe you can change it. I don't know. Or you can stop spotlighting me so I can do it. Okay, great. So I'm going to do it. So what you can do is you can post on social media and tag me, the Alley Cats, or Eyes Wide Open Life social media profile on Instagram. Okay, now you can spotlight me again. And you can share an insight that you've received from this journey to financial liberation, from the Financial Liberation Challenge so far. And then we're going to enter you all into the VIP draw. You already have the VIP if you are a personal family lawyer firm leader that paid for this course and didn't use the code that we gifted you. We decided that instead of refunding you, we would just gift you the VIP. So some of you already have that. And we will open the WhatsApp group maybe this week for those of you that are already in. And then we'll do the draw next week on the Steward Masterclass. We'll do the draw next week on the Steward Masterclass. Okay. In our last 3 minutes here, what I would love for you to do is share with me here in the chat, what is one thing that you have already received from today, or what is an open loop that you are struggling with right now that's just really loud in your brain? That like if you don't do something about this loop, it is just going to completely distract you and take you off track. So either one, you could share either one of those things. Oh, the imposter syndrome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So let me just see what I have next. Perfect. I have time. I'm gonna just spend a little bit of extra time here on imposter syndrome because I didn't get to it. Thank you for reminding me. So once you realize that you can generate income through your service, the next voice that often shows up is, who am I to do this? Can I really do this? Well, but someone else is doing it better or cheaper, or am I really ready? So all of that is imposter syndrome. And it is our ego's way of trying to keep us safe in what's familiar. And I love imposter syndrome. If you have imposter syndrome, then there are ways that I actually trust you more. If you're just starting out, the key is you cannot let imposter syndrome stop you. You have to recognize it as imposter syndrome is me being responsible. I don't believe that what I have to deliver is of value. And you do not dissolve that or overcome it by proving your worth. You do it by developing a service of value, by focusing on what you do for people outside of whether you are valuable. You are infinitely valuable. You are priceless. I hate it when I hear people say, charge what you're worth, charge what you're worth. You can't charge what you're worth. You're priceless. But what you can do is you can charge the value of your service. So anchoring into the value of your service and focusing more on the people that you're serving and who you provide that value to and how you provide that value to them is where it's at. And your confidence is going to grow through aligned action and facing and asking yourself, honestly, why don't I value my service? What do I need to do to value my service? What do I need to change about my service? How do I need to make it better? So we don't want to turn away from imposter syndrome or say, oh, that's just imposter syndrome. No. We want to say, what do I need to do to provide more value in the outcomes that I'm providing for the people that I'm serving? And that is a gift. That is a gift because the people that you're serving deserve the outcome that you say they're going to get. So if you don't feel confident that you can provide that outcome, how can you build your confidence through aligned action, through learning, through asking for help? Okay? Imposter syndrome. If you want to talk more about that, come into the school group and let's talk about it. Let's see, where might your imposter syndrome actually be pointing to something of huge value for you and the people that you serve? Cam, I am so thrilled with your insight that you can create complete clarity for yourself around your time and pricing through the money map. I am so happy and solve a challenge that you've faced since you graduated high school around how much time do you have available and thus what do you actually need to serve with and charge? Yes, I'm so happy. You all learned a lot of really great things. Thank you. Thank you for sharing these things that you've learned. And ah, my goodness. Yes, this is so great. Okay, thank you all so much for being here. I did need to go a little 2 minutes over, so I apologize for that. I will do better next week at really staying within our time boundaries and honoring your time in that way. Please come into the chat. Yes, and we can do an unmute to say goodbye and share some love. And for those of you that have to go, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll be here with you next week. And Lara, sure, if you like the unmute, we can unmute and have everybody say goodbye. I know you like that.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much. Thank you.
Everybody.
Hey, thank you, everybody.
Bye.
That was wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.
In school.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I'll see you in school and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.